All right, Kenyata, let's try it again. Okay, go ahead and wave at me. There we go. Add.
How's
All
that?
right, try again. All right. How's your day been? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, you can hear me now? Okay, good, good.
Are you? Is everything okay with the echo?
I was just informed that we need earbuds. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of
Oh,
echo. But I don't have earbuds, so
let
I
me
don't know.
let me see if
Perfect.
I put earbuds in.
Okay. What about, hey, Aaron Tomlinson? Is it echoing for you, or can you hear okay? How's
Does
it?
that make a difference?
Yeah, I wish I had earbuds though. Darn it. I wish I would have known that. Let's see. Probably have some somewhere. Oh well. Hey, actually, it's better now. It's better now.
Is it okay? So I put my
Yeah,
earbuds
I
in.
think we're good. I think we're good. Yeah. So, how has the
Okay.
day been?
It's been good, man. It's been good. It's been actually kind of chill. For the past few days, I've just been going, doing my thing. But I'm feeling grateful, happy,
Yeah, yeah. All right.
blessed. So,
Good,
how
good.
about you? How you doing?
Doing okay. Doing fine. So you and I grew up together in Minot, North Dakota. Uh,
Right?
so you were the popular girl in every beauty pageant. You won Miss Congeniality and sometimes just took the title.
Yep.
And I was the loner until I was always a loner until I became like radicalized in Christianity, and then I evangelized the whole town, and then I became a socialite. Yeah. So
Yep.
so we were very different growing up, very different experiences. Yet we ended up at when I was 17, I joined Church of God in Christ, and then I found your mom's church. Okay,
Mhm.
so your mom's church, as you've written about, was very very cultish. It was a William Branham offshoot originally, but through the shepherding movement and other factors, you've written a book called Church: The Awakening. Okay,
Mhm.
which is your description of the things that you experienced in our church. Now, when I was really young, 18 years old, and I met your mom's church, I was just looking for the most radical experience in Christ possible. So it all
Right.
made sense to me, okay, at first. And so tell me a little bit about what motivated you to write your book, Church: The Awakening.
Okay. I first want to start off saying, but you know what? I love my mom. I'm
Mm-hmm.
grateful for the experience with her. She's an amazing woman, and it was all very relevant. So growing up in the church, there was a lot of traumatic things that happened, and to the point where once I left the nest for good,
Mm-hmm.
moved to Arizona, I pretty much blocked out everything of my childhood, everything. Every time anybody would ask me, how was your life growing up?
Mm-hmm.
Had no recollection of it at all. It was
Yeah,
just a complete black screen. And I didn't really care I wasn't concerned about, wow, I don't really remember anything. It was just like, oh,
yeah,
I don't really remember,
yeah.
and so I was at home with the person I was in a relationship at the point, and just making some food. And one of the past members of the church that we had grown up with as well. I'll keep her name private just in case she doesn't want to be on video, but she had contacted me
Mm-hmm.
and just started talking about the church and things that had happened, and remember this, remember that. And it was like all of a sudden the flood of everything that had happened
Mm-hmm.
came
Mm-hmm.
over me. And um, and I just started remembering to the point where it was so fast. The flood of memories was so fast that it drove me to a point of pretty much insanity, to
Yeah.
where the person I was with, was kind of freaking out, took me to the hospital. Like I
Mm-hmm.
literally lost my
Yeah.
mind there for quite a while.
Right.
And
That's serious.
so so after healing from the extreme trauma of not even being able to function in life, the only way that I felt that I could heal was just to write it.
Yeah.
Write it out. And so the book came from healing. I had to heal some way. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I read your book, several years ago, and I was literally shaking as I read and remembered each thing that you wrote about. There is an adult member who left who read parts of your book and has no recollection of it. I think she's blocked a lot of it out herself. So anyway, so my experience, okay, you're talking about basically spiritual abuse where one person has total control over everyone's life, every move. I remember when, again, we'll keep names out of this. When one of the main pastors, when he bought a house for his family because the previous house was vandalized, so he got a new house, and it was not Zion approved. Your mother's name is Zion. She was the apostle and overseer of our church, Zion Lawrence.
Right. Yep.
Okay, so Zion did not hear from God first before he bought the house, and so the wrath of God was upon him. And when things are pronounced, they happen. Magic works. When things are pronounced and you have covenanted anytime in any group, Christianity, Islam, Baha'i, Scientology, witchcraft, and whatever, if we've covenanted, if we've made a contact, a deep koinonia connection with the leadership, and it's like a husband and a wife symbiotic relationship. If you have covenanted with a teaching, then you have living in and around you the spirit or the energy field of that teaching. And so when the leader that you're connected to in a covenant way pronounces destruction over your life, you're going to experience destruction, so one of about 300 examples I could give. I remember a time when I tacked on a word.
You're breaking up a little bit there.
Okay. Well, how about now? I remember when I gave Sarah.
Okay, that's better.
Yeah. When I gave us one of the lead female pastors a word of rebuke, and right at the end, as the Lord was speaking, as the Holy Spirit was flowing, right at the end, I tacked on a word of encouragement. And Zion said, everything you just said was God, except for that little bit of encouragement right at the end. And that was Doug. That was your own mind. And so she says to her husband, who's a 250-pound large black man, directed him to come and hit me as hard as he could twice on the shoulder. So there was physical abuse. There was, when two ladies didn't like each other during women's class, sometimes she would have them physically fight, and they'd be bleeding, and
for hours.
Yeah. Or when a certain lady, had a quote unquote masturbation issue, so she just had her, well, show us what you do, shame it to death. She had to self pleasure in front of everybody. These are acts that are from her vision for sin annihilation, and she was like a clone or a redo of Paul. It's amazing how someone like Don Keithley can read the epistles of Paul, and all he can see is faith in God's grace, and in Adam die, in Christ are all made alive. So he reads Paul's epistles, and he just sees beautiful grace and universal reconciliation. Your mom and Branham and many other preachers read Paul's epistles in the New Testament, and all they see is the statements like, I've given so-and-so over to Satan for destruction so that they might get it right later. Or 2 Corinthians 5:11, knowing the terror of the Lord, we persuade men. Everyone who loves not our Lord Jesus, let him be cursed. And Acts 13, where Paul successfully pronounces blindness on a man, because he got in his way while preaching. That's what people like Zion would. So they are new. Somebody would say, "Oh, that's not Christianity. That's not New Testament Christian." Yeah, well, it is. Revelation.
Yeah, it is.
Revelation chapter 3, it is Jesus speaking to John on Patmos, saying, I'll spit you out of my mouth. I'll fight you. He's talking to spirit-filled Christians in the 7 churches of Asia. I will fight you with the sword of my mouth. kill your children with death. It's Revelation chapter 3, verse 2, he said, your deeds are unfinished. You got to overcome that, but if you do overcome, verse 5, then I won't blot your name out of the Lamb's Book of Life. So my point is, a healthy person and an unhealthy person can read the same New Testament and get very different things out of it. Now,
Right.
my position when I was 18 years old was I just wanted the discipline. I thought these people are older and wiser than me, and so I just want what God has for me. I'm open to whatever, and these were the most radical Christians I could find. So now when I left in 2010, you left in around 2000, 2002, somewhere in there. I left in 2010.
Yep.
And when I left, I went to the Vineyard denomination, a very famous Vineyard denomination, and I found the sugar-coated version of the same exact things, Whereas in your mom's church, I was struggling with a commandment, a prophetic commandment, involving, well, we'll keep our situation out of this, but some situations we'll keep out of this, but waiting on a person to come back to God and come back to me to marry me. And I said, I'm getting tired of waiting. And the Lord, I say that in air quotes, the Lord said to me,
The Lord was very present all the time. The Lord.
Yeah. In air quotes, the Lord said to me, if you struggle, even though I'd been waiting for 12 years on this particular woman, if you struggle with this, if you even flinch at this commandment one more time, I'm going to take your ministry from you completely and give it to somebody else. So
Right.
That's horrific. God would never say that. Yet I go to the Vineyard Church where everything is love and intimacy, the Christ, the lover bridegroom. And a woman, one of their main prophets, her husband left her. Mm-hmm. And so they stripped her of her ministry completely. I didn't know incoming calls could.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah. So okay,
you're good.
So like I'm saying, that's horrific. God would never tell you that if you don't do this or that for your personal life decisions, then God's going to take your ministry away. God, that can't be God. But then I go to the intimacy-based, the love-based, the Christ the bridegroom teaching in the Vineyard denomination. The same thing happened. Their main prophet gave the prophecy for the new year at the Elijah List Conference. Her husband left her. They stripped her of her ministry. Her entire life's work was gone in a split second. So it's the same mean-spirited stuff. It's the same threatening deal. It's just that there's the sugar-coated version, and then there's the explicit version that your mom gave. So when I left, right, I went to Vineyard Church because of the love and I found the same stuff. That's just one of several things I experienced when I left and went to the Vineyard. But I love the Vineyard. I honor the Vineyard Church. I honor them for having left some of the toxic stuff in the Pentecostal holiness denomination, some of the legalism. I honor them for that, but all the traces of it were still there in other forms and in other ways. They themselves, this Vineyard denomination, got kicked out for hosting prophets at their conferences that the Vineyard headquarters did not agree with. So I get there, and the first thing that happens is the church itself was rejected by the headquarters. You can't call yourself Vineyard anymore, so they had to change their name. Then the prophet gets kicked out. Then, it's the same thing all over again, because of here's what the New Testament says, and because this is what the New Testament says, you have to obey it or you're gone. And if you're down, emotionally distraught through a divorce, we're going to kick you in your teeth, because here's what the Bible says: God hates divorce. Even though Ezra 10, God commands 120 marriages to dissolve because he didn't like who they were with, even though he had kids already. So then I move and I go to Miracles, Signs, and Wonders crowd, glory crowd, drunken glory crowd. And I just couldn't abide there because the sensationalism was so strong. And hold on, get some water. And
it's a little bit choppy.
Okay, what about now? I can hear myself fine.
That's good.
Okay. Yeah, and they wanted to be, this is the key here with the Miracle Signs and Wonders crowd. They wanted to be spirits bopping around in the air, and they wanted to never ever be human. They thought that was God's will. So you've got your mom's church. God's will is sin annihilation with the wrath of God. Like she told me one time, when she said, your mom said to me, when I look at a person, I don't even see the person. All I see is their sin. And I speak and I kill it. I annihilate it. But the problem is that her main ministers never really knew their identity in Christ. They never had a sense of identity in Christ. They developed a certain level of power and authority, but never grace, love, intimacy, none of that identity. And she said to me one time, she said, Doug, you have an intimacy with God that I don't have. Why don't I have that? And I was like opening my mouth, about to explain to her, well, you don't have it because you think God is a monster tyrant. You were taught that way. And I couldn't say it because I was so brainwashed that she's the teacher, I'm the student, she's the mother, I'm the son. I couldn't say it. So what I did.
Well, Doug, my mom, she was a bit of a freak, like, because she, like her, I'm a seer as well. Like I can see things that aren't there for other people. And so when she says, I see the sin,
right.
Who knows what she was seeing? She was probably seeing something that, that others couldn't see, or it was ugly, or that's all she saw, and that was one of her superpowers, is she could see beyond, but that's what she saw, you know what I'm saying? So her freakness was in there a little bit, which kind of drove her a little bit insane.
Right.
If you don't cultivate that power, you don't understand where it comes from, and you just kind of, just go into it the way that she did, you're gonna lose it.
Right. Absolutely. And she did on several levels. Yeah. But I still honored, her leadership ability, the way in which she did raise us up. There was, again, I'm just saying, there was much abuse, much toxicity.
Absolutely.
That came from the New Testament, the same toxicity in the vineyard that came from the New Testament, the same toxicity in the miracle signs and wonders crowd that came from
over and over
the New Testament. But, whereas your mom took the wrath of God words from Paul, the vineyard took rules and regulations from all 8 authors of the New Testament, and the glory crowd took insinuations in scripture that say we're not human, we're just spirit only, and took that to a level where you couldn't even have you could never say, hey, how you doing? To the glory crowd, I could never say, hey, how's it going? How's your day going? Because if I as much as waved hello at them, they would fall on the ground shaking like the glory just hit them. And I couldn't. That was insane. That was the most insane of all.
Wow.
So the whole thing, I said, I can't minister here anymore. I'm done with it. And that's when God revealed himself to me in a way that I teach now.
Right.
Becoming Christ is spirit and body, equality, spirit and body, integration, spirit and soul, spirit and psyche, if you will, integration. Otherwise, the Christ in your spirit is up here in your heavenlies, and your life down here, your daily life is being affected, tossed to and fro by the circumstances down here. But you put the two together by affirming the two. You don't kill one. You don't kill your lower to experience your higher. You make the two one. You affirm your colorful, wonderful humanity, and that's the return of Christ per individual. That's what said, some of you standing here will see my return. So if we don't do that, we're going to be limited to whatever the 8 authors of the New Testament said. So when you left in 22, I remember you went seeking for your healing, or fulfillment, spiritual, because you were always a spiritual person. You went looking, you went experiencing, I should say. You went about actualizing your true, authentic nature. And you always had a glow, you always shined, and you went to the Rastafarian community for a while, then Wicca, then OTO, and now you're sort of like me, a congealing of all the things you've learned throughout throughout your time. So what of that journey do you want to talk about? Do you want to just talk about initiation into the OTO in Crowley? Do you want to talk about other things?
I'm kind of lead up to that, once I just one day out of the blue, I just felt that witchcraft energy. I don't know what happened or what made me think about it, but I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm a witch. I forgot about my witchcraft, you know, and I went deep into it. I did earth, air, fire, water, spirit, the whole thing, like altar, you name it, like
Can
full
I
on.
interrupt you? You said you forgot about it, meaning you tapped into it briefly in high school.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, of course, you know, living in Minot, going to high school, talking about witchcraft, like then I became sort of a freak. So then I was stopped talking about it. That's one thing I've learned in my life is don't talk too much about it in front of people that
Right.
have
Right.
no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, but I was always so excited. But anyway, so, so I dove really deep into witchcraft, which turned into magical practices. And I was approached by one of my first mentors about Thelema, which
Okay.
was the magic practice of Aleister Crowley.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so he, you know, he's mentored me. I wrote papers. I dug deep. I was like, oh my gosh, I finally found my magical family. You know, I was just
Mm-hmm.
so excited. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
there's actual people that actually believe the same way I do, and we do magic. And so I went to my first service, mass, they call it. Went to my first mass. I drove all the way to LA to go to mass. And I've, you know, was surrounded by musicians. We were all doing the same movements. It was beautiful. I was felt like my family. And so I just kept going with it. You know, I felt free in my magical practices, and went through it for a few years. And down the road, I heard about the OTO,
Which stands
and I
for?
was
Mhm.
um,
Or-
do,
Ordo. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. Ordo Temple Orientis. Okay.
Right,
He found it. He
and
found it, but it was the Eastern version of the Golden Dawn, basically, or Rosicrucianism.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so I was like, yes. And then one of my dreams was to be, you know, I wanted to be the priestess for the mass, and it was just
Mm-hmm.
like so amazing to me.
Right. Right.
And long story short, man, I go into some of these magical practices thinking like, because when I say I practice it, I actually go deep into
Mm-hmm.
it. You know what I'm saying? I'm
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
reading it. I'm trying to be, you know, fronting. And so I go into these masses and into these practices and talk to these people. And honestly, man, it's filled with poor, unfortunate souls
Yeah.
fronting,
Yeah. Okay.
not
Okay.
not doing a damn thing.
Right. Okay. Okay.
You know, and I was just like, what is going on? Because I would talk about my experiences with Lilith and Set and the, you know, the sisters of prostitution. Like I would go deep, like this is what happened to me. Like I was hung out with Lucifer the other day and this is what we were talking about. And they're
Right. Right.
looking at me like, and I'm like, maybe I should stop talking.
Can I just say it would be the same thing as when a Christian has experienced a visitation from the Apostle Paul or Mary Magdalene or Jesus, and
Yeah,
the Christians are like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, it's same deal, same deal, different
exactly.
forms. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
exactly. You know, and they were very profound for me. And so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I thought that since we are all practicing the same thing and
Mm-hmm.
believing it, you know, Thelema, this is what we do, we come together, that this would resonate with them. But, you know, it all kind of just was disappointing. It was very disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I met someone a male that I became intimate with, and he was in Thelema as well. And
And he was the real deal.
and he was the real deal. I went and visited him. We practiced magic together. I was like, oh my God, there's actually a male person that actually practices magic that we could do it together. Like he had different elements that he had that I didn't, and vice versa. And then we put them
Right.
together,
Right.
and it was fabulous. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, and his dream was to be the priest of mass. And he was like,
Mm-hmm.
I've been looking for my priestess. And I'm like, all right, cool, let's do this. And so as time went on, you know, my intuition was like, just something was just not right here. Like it seemed very superficial and dangerous.
Okay.
And I felt like I was a pawn in whatever ritual they had going on to whatever he needed from me
Yeah.
to up his powers or whatever.
Yeah.
I was just a pawn in the game.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I would have dreams about this, and dreams about, I would have these like awkward dreams about what was really going on. You
Mm-hmm.
know, what was the abuse that was going on in there, physical, sexual, all of it.
Yeah.
And
Can I
so,
ask
you
you
know,
this? Do you feel like
yeah.
like the corruption of, say, like rape, possible murder, those things were mostly just on the upper levels?
Yes, I think. Well, maybe not all the way. I think to get to the upper levels,
Mm-hmm.
that those practices had to be done.
Okay.
If you wanted to get to the upper levels, then you had the initiation was to, and I don't know this for sure, but that's what I felt like I was going to be a part of.
And do you think that has to do with energy harvesting, meaning that there's a
Yes.
certain amount of trauma and pain harvested in order to cultivate that in the black magician in order to ascend to the next grade, even though that's actually opposite of what Crowley was trying to say in the first place.
Yes, because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, I mean, when I walked in, I was a woman of power. Like, you know what I'm saying? I have Lilith over here, Hecate over here, Lucifer in the back, and Set in the front, and we're walking up in there, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah.
I was a woman of power. So the thing was to break me down
Mm-hmm.
and do what they needed to do with me to harness that power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, and so I believe that was my partner at the time. That was the point of the whole relationship. It was all planned out basically, because he
Mm-hmm.
had told me that had been stalking me for about 4 years before he even approached me.
Yeah. Well, that's really
So
cool. Yeah.
yeah, so I didn't want to do the initiation. My mom was right there telling me not to do it, but I was pretty much forced to do it.
You mean your late mother, her spirit?
Yeah, her spirit. She came to
Okay.
me in dreams. She came to
Right.
me just through, just like animal spirit things happen, just things happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did not want to do it. I did not want to do it, and it felt just, I just did not want to, but I was forced to.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and then as we're going there, I'm telling him, I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I mean, he had a mission. It was happening,
Mm-hmm.
and I did, and the initiation was not good.
Mm-hmm.
It was not good. It was not cool. And
And may I interject? When you say initiation, you're talking about being initiated into the first of several grades.
degree.
And the man you were
Yes,
with, he was probably on the what grade, or what is that called that he was? Uh,
he wanted to be a ninth degree.
okay, so he
He
was
was
on the
he
eighth
was going.
grade. Okay, the eighth
Yeah.
degree of it, and you were initiated into the first degree, and you said your initiation felt horrible.
Yes, it felt like he needed me to do this for
Okay,
something
that was
other than me wanting to do
his
it.
agenda. Okay, okay,
Yes. Yes, and if I, like it was all about what he needed to get to the ninth degree,
okay.
basically.
Wow. All right.
So, and whatever he needed to do with me couldn't be done unless I willingly gave myself to this first degree. Do you know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
okay,
Like,
okay. I see. I see. I see.
I couldn't just be a person outside of out of the order for this to happen,
Okay.
whatever was supposed to happen.
So it sounds like the teachings of Crowley and the practices of the higher ups were very opposite. Because yeah, we can get into that in a little bit, but that's what it sounds like. Madame Blavatsky, I think in the 1940s, warned that some very evil, very very corrupt people are infiltrating these particular secret societies, and to
Mm-hmm.
disband. But nobody disbanded. People just kind of kept it as it was, and now here we are today. And people, you fed on and read some powerful wisdom teachings from Crowley, in which
Yes.
he was very misunderstood. Everybody thought he was a Satanist. He was actually trying to become one with the universe. He was actually trying to say,
Yes.
"Do what thou wilt. Do what you will." The you part is the highest level of your spirit, that is pure love. And that's why he said love is
Right.
law, because only by ascending to the highest apex of your being, the highest part of your Christ spirit, can you find your true will. And once you find your true will and connect with it, then do what you will. That will be the whole of the law. All Aleister Crowley was saying was exactly what Paul was saying when he said the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace. Against such there is no law. Just be yourself. And that's what I've learned in the last 10 years. But what people did with Crowley was do what you will, that should be the whole of the law. I said, okay, well, I want to smash this person in the face. So
Right.
I'm gonna abide by Crowley's words and do what I want. Have
Right.
my
And the thirst for power, the thirst to be the ninth degree, the thirst to tell people what to do is just rampant.
okay,
Everybody
okay,
wants the high power. Everybody wants to be the one on top, and
hmm
the race to get there is just like ridiculous, man.
right, right, yeah. Now I will
Yeah.
interject that Crowley was trying to deconstruct from his very strict Christian upbringing, and he did not successfully deconstruct. So in his
Right.
gift, in his amazing gift, that was the same gift as Solomon the king had, that same capacity for great wisdom and breadth and length of wisdom. He also was trying so hard to get all traces of toxic Christianity out of his being that he
Right.
kind of went dark. He kind of went dark. It caused he ran. Some people just cuss a few times and the religious demon is off of them. All right. Some people find that they have an erotic experience and there's no condemnation from God. It's just an ordained part of your being and they're fine. I think Crowley couldn't do that. I think Crowley went to great length to get all the Christian condemnation, the guilt. His own mother used to call him the great beast, 666, and whatever you call the thing it becomes. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like he was trying to deconstruct and went so far into the dark side, even though he was teaching one thing. He was teaching things that are actually what God has shown me over the years, but he was practicing in the later years something very black magic, something very dark. And
Right.
but nevertheless, those stars of the Thelema world, like Jack Parsons, um, some of the other guys that were amongst the Golden Dawn, Hubbard, who wrote Dianetics, he was part of that. And even Austin Osman Spare, he had fully deconstructed from Christianity. But again, in those days, Christianity in its more superstitious form had such a stronghold in society that for them to leave it just a little made them go very dark. And today
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be
we can leave
careful
the
of that.
superstitions and the body shaming and the misogyny and the affirmation of slavery and we can the superstitions about sex and homosexuality. We can leave that today and still operate in God, operate in the light, operate in the Christ, and know it's the Christ. I think in those days there was a greater stronghold of superstition over society, and they didn't have the same experience. So it's a shame that the OTO has such a wealth of wisdom teachings. They have the gift of wisdom understanding, but so many people used it for the lust for power. And you see that in Christianity as well, in every religion. But that's my
Yeah, and that particular order that I joined, I mean, because when I first found Thelema, I found it through one person, and he was kind of in my life and out of it, and I studied it on my own.
right, right.
And I fell in love with it. Like I was like this. I don't even have words how much I fell in love with it. And then the order just destroyed
Yeah.
everything for me,
Mm-hmm.
destroyed it all. I was
Yeah.
like, this is not
Mm-hmm.
what happened to me. This is not what came to me when I read the book of the law.
Right, 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 right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Same thing with
So,
me. I could read Crowley, and there's the same God that led me to write my book 20 years ago. I wrote my book 20 years ago, A New Kingdom Age. And I read Crowley to find out, because I was bringing people in the occult to Christ, and know your enemy. I read Crowley to find out what the devil was doing, and I start reading. And I'm like, oh my God, this is all the same stuff the Holy Spirit of Christ has been showing me for years, child. So God is in everything and everyone. But whether it's Christianity, whether it's something else, if we go back in time to pre-Christian religions or Christianity 2,000 years ago, or to the witchcraft of 3,000 years ago in the same form where they had primal sacrifice, where they believed pain and blood is the sacrifice to be able to bless the fertility of the land or your life, then it's going to barbarism, the level of barbarism that they had back then. So that's why
right.
my whole message is be in the now, not 2,000 years ago, the Adolf is the New Testament, not before that. The version of Diana, the version of Astarte, the version of Jesus they even had 2,000 years ago. And right in Revelation 2, Revelation 3 is toxic. The version of Diana, Lilith, Hecate back then can be toxic. Time magazine.
Right.
Time magazine 2004 covered a story where temples dedicated to the goddess Kali were having human sacrifices. This was in Time
Right.
magazine 2004, which the FBI says that doesn't happen, but it was documented. But that's the same Kali that Wiccans in California in the now, that would never happen. They would never be led like that. That Kali
Mm-hmm.
is a representation of deconstruction. It's a representation of cutting off and killing old patterns in your life, old toxic things, and you do away with those things. That's what the goddess Kali
That's
represents
it.
now. The Christ represents now higher self-development, also called Lucifer, but light bringer. But
Right.
so you had a lot of your involvement with the gods and goddesses within the Ordo Temple Orientis. Your predominant connection and the way you resonated was predominantly with Lilith.
Right.
So tell me about an experience with Lilith, or something that she taught you, or who is she?
Well, my experience with Lilith,
Mm-hmm.
how she came into my life was I did a year-long study in draconian magic.
Yes.
And I went completely into my darkness,
Mm-hmm.
experiencing my darkness, the dark side, the whole everything dark.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't necessarily mean bad. That just means I'm
Or evil. Yeah.
experiencing the other side of myself,
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so it was a year long. I mean, I was dedicated to it morning, noon, night. I breathed, ate, drank, all of it. And she was the one that opened my eyes to what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw myself in her, and she saw herself in me.
Yeah.
And and I was able to, I created a portal in my magic room, and I was able to go into that portal, and she would take me through all of these experiences with Set, experiences with Hecate. Like she was my guide. She was like
She
my
was
mother.
supervising. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she kicked my ass too, man.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't play around. Um, and I have her tattooed on my back because it was just the life altering experience. I asked to actually see, like she didn't really, because I'm a seer, so I'm able to see things. But with her, she wouldn't let me see her right away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kept asking and asking and asking and asking and asking, to the point where when she did, I was only able to see a tiny little part that pretty much threw me across the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
Because it's
just
so
like, all right,
powerful.
I got you. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's cool. I'm
Yeah.
good. I got
Yeah.
you,
Pentecostals
and
experienced that with Jesus. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
And shot
So,
across the room. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so
That's the power.
she's just
Mm-hmm.
been the one that I resonated with the most, and the first deity, the first spirit, the first goddess, whatever you want to call her, that changed my life and split me up from the light and the dark, and then brought me back together, made me see all of my shit,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, and deal with it and hate it and love it. And,
Mm-hmm.
she just was the bringer. She was the bringer for me. She brought it all, she separated it, and she brought it all back together for me.
So you're saying Lilith, the goddess, the dark
Hmm.
goddess, was honing your character to make you become your best self.
That's it.
That's my point too. Is that they're
In a
all there.
nutshell.
There's only one spirit, and we form it how we will. Yeah. And we take
That's it.
from the teachings that are available, and it becomes whatever's available in what I call the morphic field of the earth, which is every god, goddess, idea of God, concept of God that has ever been, because quantum physics is proving that everything is non-local, and all ideas, all thoughts are non-local in time and space. I can think something, a kid in Africa can pick it up. So
Right.
whatever's in the astral, we can pick up. And if the concept of the Christ was abuse in our lives, some people like yourself will get your spirituality and spiritual fulfillment from a different concept. If you get
Yes.
triggered, if you hear the name Jesus and get triggered, see, there was a girl in South Africa who left a very criminal organization, criminal version of Satanism, very opposite to Lucian Greaves and the Satanic, very opposite, because it was
Mm-hmm.
full of predatory criminality. And she left and for 10 years, she could not walk into a Christian church because during the Satanic years, they implemented things like how do you put it? Very high tech associations of Jesus and pain. So whether you're coming from a church like your mom's or a satanic group like that, either way. But now she's come full circle 10 years later, and now she can fellowship with the Christ. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter to me. Lilith is I resonate with Lilith in the sense of the rabbinical legends of mankind being the wife of God, the Shekinah, who in her lower vibration is Lilith, also called Babylon, Kali, Hecate, Az, J. Those are all the names of dark feminine. And then in her higher vibration is called Shekinah. So I had a vision of myself one time when I was born. My spirit yelled, "I am Lilith, and I am one with God." So I've always resonated with the concept of Lilith, not as a demon. She evolved from a night demon in Sumer to Adam's first wife in Israel, and now social justice and the rejected prophet and the poet. That's all encompassing. But gender and social justice is her archetype now. A Christian is not going to be able to see that. So anyway, so that's your experience with Lilith. Tell me, the desert god Set, who defeated the god Osiris, and then Osiris was buried. His essence came up in a tree. His wife Isis laid on that tree that was made into a woodwork, and she was virgin birth impregnated and bore Horus. Horus rises up and defeats Set, but therefore Set is in that mythos not a demon but a purging fire, just like Jesus upon the Pharisees who were complacent, and Jesus was their enemy. They called him Prince of Devils, Beelzebub. So in our lives, Set represents the purging fire that isolates us unto a time when we got to deal with our stuff. So you had an experience. Tell me about your experience with the Egyptian god Set.
Okay, I did a week-long practice with him, and it was very, very intense. And so I would go into trance state, go into the portal, and there was the one particular time where I went into the portal and I woke up in the hot desert sand. And I looked like trash. My lips were cracked and bleeding, and I couldn't breathe, and it took everything in me to just get up, and I was just frail and skinny, and I stood up, and I saw Set in the distance, and I felt him. He didn't say it, but I felt the need to walk towards him. And so it took everything in me to take each step, just because I felt like I just wanted to die. And I get to him. He's standing in front of me, and his eyes became one eye, and then his entire body just formed into one large eye. And this eye sucked me in, and I felt like a fetus inside of my belly, inside this eye. And then he shot me out. Of his eye, and I was covered in what I would call afterbirth, and he shot me up into the sky, into this like sort of sphere looking thing, and inside the sphere there was an intimacy with him. I had some intimate time with him. And there were all these doors. There was thousands and thousands of doors, and when the doors would open, there were thousands and thousands of doors inside those, and on and on and on. It was just infinite doors. When one would open, there would be more. And he allowed me to dance inside the sphere while I sort of grew up. I was growing up inside this sphere. And then I shot back down, and I stood in front of him, and I was naked. I was naked in front of him. And we had this telepathic conversation that I can't even articulate the words, because it wasn't really any words. It was just what it was, and then I came out of it. And so the next time I went and visited him, I I went into trans state, I went into the portal, and I was just like this badass powerhouse with like 2 black dogs next to me, and him and
Yeah.
I were just like hanging out, like we were gonna go, hang out, have some cognac or something, and talk some shit,
Right. Right.
and because I made it through, because that was the hardest thing, man. Like that was when I was in the desert. That was the hardest thing. I didn't even think I was gonna be able to come out of the trans state because I was so weak. But he showed me that, no, you're not, you still got something in there, come on, get up. He would, do this. And it was a rebirth. It was a total rebirth, to the point where I was just like, we could hang out side by side now. And I felt totally comfortable hanging out with him.
Wow. Okay. So there was a strength essence because, okay, I'm making sense of your allegory and your experience.
Okay.
So Set representing going against the usual way. The status quo, like Jesus did with his the Judaism culture. He went against the status quo, picked corn on the Sabbath, talked to the dead, Moses and Elijah on a mountain, spoke of the leader of the people, King Herod. I mean, he did all these things that were against the cultural religion of his day. So he forged his own path. He forged his own way, and that's what the desert god Set represents in the frame of Osiris and Isis. Their law.
Right.
And so in the first vision, the first experience, you were depleted of the Set quality, the Setian traits. You were still subservient to societal imposition, your church's imposition. And in the second experience, you were full of having forged your own path and actualized your true self, and you saw yourself in Set and him and you, and that's really awesome. That's really awesome.
It was so awesome, man.
Yeah, that's what I get out of that.
It was so awesome.
How important to a human being is the erotic? I mean, I don't mean people looking for love and having sex, because that leads to this. I mean, the erotic part of our being. Is that important? Or do we go with what Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 6 and try to kill it out of our being unless we're married? What do you think?
I think it is very important, but you have to be careful of what you define erotic,
Okay.
because when I say I had an intimate time with Set, that's not like human sex.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not a human orgasm or anything like that. It's completely something that you have to experience, and you have to want to experience it. That's why magic is important, because it helps the human mind to believe that something different is possible.
Okay.
That's why I believe that magic is important. So when you go in and you want to have a spiritual, intimate connection, say with Set or whoever, Lilith or whatever, you have to erase your mind of what you believe erotica is, what sex is.
Okay.
Because you won't be able to experience it if you think that is what sex is, because it's not, So I do think it's important. I do think it's important to have those intimate experiences with spirits.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because it's the higher level of it, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I would know that
from
when I would dance in the spirit. I would dance in worship for about 4 or 5 hours at a time, and I'd have that. It wasn't sexual erotic, but it was intimacy in my spirit that was beyond human sex, and that was amazing. So we all experience it no matter the God form. But as far as on a human level, that in 2011 when I left everything and just became a blank slate and said, God, reveal yourself to me. And one of the first things he showed me, for me, because the way I'm wired, was that, because I was, except for a fall in 2008, I was celibate for like 20 years, basically. And so one of the things he showed me was that you've got to have a balance. There are a lot of superstitions, a lot of things that were not my heart written into the New Testament about sex. And so if you don't pretend like you're looking for love here, he led me to get on a dating site, and I dated for a couple of years, and I was very upfront. Here's what I'm looking for. And once I started integrating my spirit and my body, and I had sex with, like for example, in 2012, I probably had 4 or 5, not all at the same time, but 4 or 5 women that I was sexually active with, and just for the sake of sex, just for the sake of erotic. And when I did that, I knew my spirit and my body, my humanity and my spirit were now integrated as one being. And all of a sudden, what happened online was the apostles of the Apostolic Reformation, these seasoned, especially the late Apostle Tim Early, the seasoned, valid, anointed apostles of Christ in our modern day, they piped up, and then all of a sudden they started resonating with me. Tim Early,
Right.
On his website, apostlesandprophets.net, he had hundreds of articles from prophets all over the world. And then he had on his main page, he had 10 articles that were the golden articles. Those were his main thing. 7 of them were written by him. 1 was by Ogaga. People would know who that is. And 2 of them were mine. So that was the greatest honor. And that let me know. See, God is in this. These people are not discerning, hey, you got a lust demon. These people are discerning you are partaking of the power of the age to come. See, not the age we're in. But once I started years later, once I started being explicit, hey, this is God's will. If you are wired in a way that has a particular sexual, now, again, it has to be within mutual consensual understanding between 2 people. It has to be within, or if you have a partner, it has to be according to your agreement, nothing done in the dark, nothing done shady. But I mean, if 2 people want to experience something erotic, I've experienced God, the same God I served when I was ordained as an apostle of Christ, traveling the globe. The same God is now blessing that because my paradigm changed. And the voice of God that we hear is the spirit of the teaching. So you get, let's say you read 1 Corinthians 6 and you take on the spirit of that teaching. Then when you pray to God, God, the spirit of that teaching is going to speak to you and say, and this is what I experienced in late 1990s. I'm bringing you in. This is late 90s for me now. When I took on the spirit energy, remember my words, they are spirit and life. Whether the person is lying to you, whether the person is telling you the truth, words are energy. Words are spirit and life. You take on the words of a person like Paul, and that is you encased and ensorcelled with those words. So when you pray to God, those are the words you're going to hear based on the energy you feel you have encased yourself in. So in the 90s, the same God that I'm working with and who is in me and as me now was leading me to a zero masturbation lifestyle, a zero lust, what I called lust back then is called beautiful now. But I was going by New Testament paradigm, and it took years, but it took 16 years for me to completely annihilate that part of my human nature. But I made it happen. And then your mom perked up and anointed me as a prophet. Traveled in the ministry, and then I have a Damascus Road experience where God is like, sexuality is important. You have to be fulfilled if you're going to partake of the powers of the age to come that I'm going to bring humanity into. And that's when I started living that way. That's when the apostles started really like affirming me, backing my articles up, until the day that I became more explicit about these things that I'm saying now. And so
I think we're gonna have to do a part 2 on sex magic.
Okay. And real quickly for those listening, I define sex magic as during orgasm there is a greater emitting of energy, and you visualize a goal, and the power and the spirit and life of that goal is thrust into the atmosphere or into the situation on a much more potent level than if you were just praying words. So so to me, sex magic goes with Jesus' words where he said, when you stand praying, believe those things that you say, and you shall have them. Because we align our will, desire, and belief as if it are not hoping for something, but the law of attraction says if we can feel it and see it and think it like it's already happened, we align ourselves to magnetize the goal it presses the elements to conform the elements of your situation to your will. And so when us intercessors back in the 90s and early 2000s, we would pray for people to become Christians, we were exercising our version of witchcraft upon their minds. And sometimes they would become Christians, but it's no different. It's the same thing. Everybody has made up of spirit, soul, and body. And one person's spirit wasn't made from some other God, and another person's spirit made from another. are all the universe, or God having become the universe, God having brought forth a mankind, caused us to forget, so we gradually remember our divinity, no matter the religion. Yeah. So yeah, to me, sex magic, you would be able to do a great teaching on it, but my definition for it is simply at the point of orgasm, thrusting your visual of the goal at hand into the situation to empower it. Barbara Simons teaches on that sometimes.
Okay.
She was a deliverance minister in Christianity, and and now she's more New Age, but that's something she teaches on too. Yeah, we should do that. We should totally
Nice.
do that. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, brother, I got to get going. I got some things
Okay.
going on today, and my phone's actually about to die. But I would love to
Gold
make
mine.
this a thing, and
Mm-hmm. We could, yep. Because we're kind of
do
we're
it
different.
maybe like once a month or something.
Okay, yeah, because there's enough common ground. We're so different as people, but there's enough common ground, and there's a deep appreciation for each other's experience that we've had coming out of the same church. So I love you, sis.
Yes.
You have a good rest of the
I
day.
love you too, brother.
Okay,
You
bye
too.
bye.
Thank you so
Bye. Take
much,
care.
brother. Bye.